Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat. Ishavasya Upanishad will begin with sloka 11, in which the seers is talking about vidya and avidya. Avidya does not mean ignorance, and vidya does not necessarily mean the knowledge from the external world. Vidya is that awareness with which we know our true self. And avidya is that awareness with which we know our body and the external world around us. Several slokas we studied, and still few more are coming up. And last sloka we were studying was that we have to have vidya and avidya together, being aware of. If we simply translate into, then we would know how is it ever possible. How is it possible that in common terms, knowledge and ignorance can go together? So it's so important and to understand what our rishis is guiding us. It's such a powerful spiritual path. And in that is talking about why togetherness. And that part we'll study today into little detail. Let us go to that part. This is what we just began last time, and that is Vidyam cha avidyam cha ya tat veda ubhayam saha sa together. Avidya avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amrutam asnute. Understanding.
Vidyam cha avidyam cha yastad vedo bhayam saha avidyaya mrityum tirtva avidyayamritamashmute.
Now, that is the way it to be chanted. But for us, not knowing the Sanskrit, and to understand, if we separate every word that way, it will be easier for us to understand. And the translation is, he who knows both vidya and avidya together crosses death by avidya and obtains immortality by vidya. Now, vidya, knowledge, and here again understand, just don't take it as a knowledge, but awareness of one's own true self. Cha and avidya, lack of knowledge, lack of being aware of one's own true nature. That is, we can say we all are in the state of avidya because we all the time identify ourselves as our body, and also we identify all of our characteristics, all of our so-called knowledge of the external world, which is engineer, worker, housewife, doctors. But mind you, this is the objective knowledge, and this pertains to your body. And when I say when it pertains to your body, as soon as mrityu, the death comes, and the body it need to be changed, at that time, you are no longer a doctor or an engineer or housewife or whichever profession. So, avidya, do not take it as ignorance. And still we can take it as an ignorance of one's own true nature. But it's not that you may be illiterate, you won't have gone to school ever. And you can say, hey, I have not studied. But even though you might not have studied the external world, but you may still be aware of one's own self. And as previously mentioned many times, that too much knowledge of the external world or the objective world may sometimes disqualify us to be aware of one's own true nature. So please understand this. It is not a matter of logic, and it is not a matter of interpretation. So here, avidya, this being, that Veda means to know, and here again, Veda is a general term, but most of the spiritual language, when they use the word Veda, that means knowledge or to know of one's own true nature. Vayam, both, where when you are referring to certain bilingual, that means Pullinga and Strilinga, male, female. For that also the word Vayam, Ubhayapada, in Sanskrit has been used. So here, to have knowledge of Vidya and Avidya together, Vayam, Saha means together, Avidyaya, due to the lack of knowledge. Mrityum, death. Tirtva, goes beyond, recognizes, realizes. Vidyaya, due to knowledge. The first one, avidyaya, and this is vidyaya. Amrutam, immortality. Uh, you can say moksha, liberation. All right. The word mruta comes from the word death, and means not, no death. Thereby, do not take it that you will live forever. That is not what it meant. And what it is, we'll be discussing today. Asnute, riches, that's where. So, what it said, as we know, that when a person put together and becomes aware of vidya and avidya both together. So this sloka says that with avidya, one crosses the stage of death, and with vidya, one reaches the immortality. It is so important. First, okay, let's talk about I have too many thoughts coming to me, so bear with me, the way we want to proceed with. If you have avidya, then body has a characteristic of change, decay, and death. Three fundamental characteristics. Change meaning by the time you were born until you die, no matter what age, every single minute, your body is undergoing change. The second word is change, decay. Decay, body deteriorates. Even though it may appear that the body is growing from the time you are born, but understand at the cellular level, the cell decays and dies. Of course, the new cell comes in. You may not, as a whole, die, but definitely it is changing, it is decaying, and the final stage of decay is death. So that there are no more decay happens. And in a sense, you can say, we are experiencing death at cellular level from the time you are born until you die. But at that stage, what happens? Death is the final death from which on no more death happens. Because this is the end of our journey. So this is possible with avidya. You cross the death. In other words, no more death happens. This is due to avidya. And because of vidya, and when you are becoming simultaneously aware, so you're seeing one side that our body is undergoing change, decay, and death. And at the same time, simultaneously, the chance of vidya, and that is, when you are aware of your own self, at that time you know that the self is eternal. And once again, going back to our first four words, Ishavasya Idam Sarvam. In this all, The controller, Isha, is pervading. And it never addresses, and then it further qualifies that Isha is eternal. It is running faster than you can. It is steady and not running at all. All those wonderful sloka we studied from second sloka onward. So to say, Isha is eternal, immortal. Eternal meaning, and if you are aware of it, Ubhayam, treating simultaneously Vidya and Avidya. So that on one side the body is decaying, but you're not concerned with it. You know that this is the apparel rather. The apparel, which is the external cloth that we wear, is slowly undergoing changes. It undergoes the decay and eventually death. But at the same time, simultaneously, even though you are witnessing cellular death at every moment, then this is where viveka, discernment, discrimination comes into picture. And it's for a common person to understand simultaneous observation of vidya and avidya. Person may say, you must be a nut. But most of us do not witness the changes, the decay, and definitely progressive death. Most of us we don't, because we are so involved in the characteristic, the functionality of this body. And we are undergoing one after another event and the steps of the success that we want to get. We do not even see. A moment ago, I was hoping to have a new house. I got the house, but then we are not appreciating it. We are thinking now, how am I going to decorate it? Or how am I going to extend it? In other words, so-called success, so-called accomplishment of certain goals, we keep going, but we are not noticing the changes even in our desire, even in our thinking. But if you silently sit down and go over in your internal journey, you do not have to write anything, but you see moment to moment, there's a continuous change. There's a continuous death. And there is continuous unawareness of we being eternal. Understand all those 3-4 points which I mentioned. If we ask ourselves how often we are thinking, or even thinking, not realizing it, it's just a thought that we are eternal. Even if we have a simple headache or cold, we say, oh my God, I'm so miserable. We never think, my body may be feeling miserable, but I am not. And that awareness that I am the spirit, I am Isha, I am manifested Isha. Now, in the following sloka, the word manifest comes into picture. So understand that word appears little fancy, but it is not. Manifestation meaning to take form of something so that objectively you can perceive, you can understand that the existence happens. Anything to exist, we can say that that thing is manifested. Sanskrit word prakatya, meaning to come into being, to come into perceivable limit. We can go into much detail, and it may be the matter of interpretation, and that is, as soon as a tree comes into existence, and then you see the fruits will come on it. As soon as the fruits come on it, you will see the seeds are also in the fruit manifested. But those seeds do not yet have the tree in it, so you can say unmanifested. And still, from a deeper and subtler level, you can say that yes, it has been manifested. So, something in the womb of Mother Nature, if that has yet not manifested, then we can say unmanifested. We will be looking into that sloka, so understand manifested and unmanifested. And in one of the sloka, or no, not in Shanti part, it talks about so beautifully that something is manifested, and manifested once produces further, and it further manifests. And when it further manifests, the totality, the whole Purnam, which has manifested and unmanifested, but there is no reduction, so the totality still remains, and it is so phenomenal. Common logic will not let us understand that if $100 you have and take out $100, still $100 will remain. That is what the sloka says, that's what the Shanti part says. But if you study this point, if you become aware of the so-called totality, so-called completeness, so-called fullness, so-called perfectness, that remains untouched. So from a common objective logic is concerned, it appears to be nonsense. And that is where the difference between subjective science and objective science comes into picture. And that difference cannot be explained, and one cannot be replaced by the other. But still understand that does not mean that you disregard the objective science and worry only the subjective science. But this great Rishi is talking about put vidya and avidya together, ubhayam. Be aware of, whereby if you are studying to be a spiritual person and you want to define your path of sadhana, it is never that you disregard your responsibility here and go and live on the mountains of Himalayas. Whereby those who are living on the mountains of Himalayas, they may not also be doing anything wrong, mind you, may not be. And who are we to tell whether they do wrong or not? But for this Upanishad, let us have vidya and avidya together, so that avidya on one side, change, decay, and death is taking place, so that the manifesting cycle continues. But you know at that stage that that is the external body. But the internal core, which is the true self itself, never dies. And when you could see your body phasing away, mind you, you see, and here seeing is not perceiving, but to experience and realize as if the dying person is not you, but somebody else. So quite often in our Wednesday class, at the time of Yoga Nidra, we are hearing this statement, observe your body as a third person. At that time, direct mention was not mentioned about Ishavasya Upanishad and sloka number 11. But it is so nice that we all stay together and we study the background, so that when it comes the time of studying the sloka 11, our attention can go back to that stage at which we had studied, observe your body as third person. That means you are something, pardon my word, because there's no word to describe, that's why I'm saying it is something. It is something beyond your body, so you are not the body. At the same time, you cannot also deny that you do not have a body. Body cannot be disregarded. Body is body, and had there not been body, do you think even the question of spirituality would have even arose? So do not simply disregard. Take care of the body as a temple. And this is the only and only vehicle you have even to think of vidya, meaning eternity, liberation, moksha. So wonderful, putting vidya and avidya together simultaneously. So every time, no matter which faith you come from, carry on that faith also is a path. But along with that, when is the time for contemplation? And you are becoming silent. then dive inward and remind yourself, I am eternity. I am totality. I am fullness. And this fullness, totality, perfectness, wholesomeness, this is my true nature. Body has been given just as a vehicle. And that vehicle is undergoing the changes. This is part of our sadhana. Understand, dear friend, simply not just listen and go away, but take little guidance for our day-to-day life. What we can do for our sadhana, for our dedicated spiritual practice. Whereby here, and particularly I would never say, you quit your religious activity. Carry on religious activity, but with the awareness that your true religion is just to be aware that you are consciousness, you are spirit, you are Isha. Once when your true nature is observed, witnessed, then it has no locality or the boundary. And as soon as there is boundary, there is limitations. So if you assign yourself to be a person with that religion, that means you are not with the other religion. That means you are narrowing yourself down. And once you narrow, meaning you have a boundary, and once you have boundary, where is the question of liberation, moksha? Moksha means liberation, freedom. So the boundary, limitations, and freedom do not go together. Understand. And as soon as the death will happen, the external identification with your body that you are Christian, Islamic, Jew, Jewish, Buddhist, and whatnot, that thing will go away. And there are people who may still hang around with the way to dispose of the body, but then beyond that, there is nothing. But at that time too, there is, you are, and that you are what you always were. Even though we may not have been aware of, but Isha is ever present. So understand this loka, and it's so beautiful to have these two awareness together. And if you take it as a translation, have knowledge and ignorance together, it doesn't make sense. But this is Upanishads, are the scriptures, not from a common logical, material knowledge or explanation. It is a lot deeper and beyond logic. Understanding this, let me go to the next loka. The 2-3 slokas, they're very similar looking, but each one carries very profound knowledge. So let me take you to the sloka number 12. Okay, let us first chant this.
अन्धं तमः प्रविशन्ति ये असम्भूतिमुपासते ततो भूय इव ते तमो यौ सम्भूत्यां रताः.
Okay. Andam tamaha pravishanti ye sambhuti upasate tato bhuya eva te tamaha ye u sambhutyam rataha. Let's see what it means word by word. First, the translation. Those who worship unmanifested reality enter into blinding darkness. More than that, those who worship manifested reality also enter into a denser realm of darkness. So, manifested and unmanifested. Let me take it to the next slide, which is step by step. Andam, blinding. Let's just read through tama, darkness. Pravishanti, enters, pravishanti. Ye, these who, sambhutim, untruth. Upasate, follows, understands. Tata, similarly, or likewise. Bhuyam, deeper. Eva, as if also. Te, those. Tama, again darkness. You, even. Sambhutyam, truth, the way it has been existing. Rataha, enters deeper. So here, those who worship unmanifested reality enters into blinding darkness. Meaning, try to understand vidya and avidya in this relationship. Those who worship unmanifested reality, something which has not been manifested, and something that you are dreaming of, and that is your hypothetical reality. And even though we use the word reality, but it's not real. What I meant by not real, anything that we take it as existing, or sometimes we say, is it real? When somebody is talking about some event or some manifestation, and somebody is talking that such and something will cost you $1,000. So we often say, is it real cost that you are talking about? Something that we can depend upon? So those who worship unmanifested reality, which does not have any validity, without any awareness, those people enter into the darkness, meaning they are living with utmost confusion. And those who worship manifested reality also enters into denser realm of darkness. Now, manifested reality, if certain spiritual guide have come into picture in the existence, I will not name anyone, otherwise it may seem to be partial. But when you are worshipping only those which came into existence, it can be just the human being, and we may treat them as God, or certain natural resources or Panchamahabhuta, and only treat them without looking into the seed of causality, or without looking into the deeper realm of all encompassing, meaning there is nothing wrong in taking a ray of light from the sun and taking that as a guidance and thinking about the sun, projecting our thinking or our projection leading to the sun. That is perfectly fine. But if you take just one ray of light and talk to that ray of light as if that is the truth, that is the sambhutyam, that is the totality, that is the fullness. And here, understand, when I say that the fullness, that means nothing else is full. So only my image, and I'm using the word image, and please pay attention, whatever you thought it to be, so-called God, I will repeat, whosoever or whatever, whichever you thought it to be God. And what do you mean by you thought it to be God? Where does the thinking begin? The thinking begins in your mind. And where does the mind get this thinking? From the 5 sense organs. And who feeds these 5 sense organs? The external environment. And anything and everything beyond yourself is object. So you're feeding the objective information through your 5 sense organs. And as a result, what happens? Your mind treats it as if that is the God. But is God, so-called your God, pardon me, is your God all-pervading? Is your God eternal? And is your God and you are different? And if they are different, they naturally will be. And if they are different, then how could we say or think that it is all-pervading, omnipresent? In that case, once again, going back to our good old, most powerful four word, Ishavasya Upanishad. In this all, Isha is pervading. And please do not treat Isha, even though they have been described by the Sanskrit word, but do not assign that it is Hinduism or it is Jainism or Buddhism or Sikhism or Judaism. No ism, and all isms are human created. So here, it's trying to tell us all encompassing everything. And again, as soon as you use the word thing, that means limitation. It has characteristic. So here it's such an element, I still cannot call element. When some such element do take place, in that case, there are limitations. So that eternity does not have any definition. And we often use the word shanti, prem, compassion. What is shanti? Can you describe shanti, peace? Peace is that stage beyond ripples, beyond any disturbance. And how would you describe it? So the supreme reality is all pervading, and all pervading, everywhere pervading. And that is also our own nature. And when during the stage of dharana, when you reach to the meditative state, and when you go beyond meditation, meaning sustained meditation, you cannot do it, but it can happen. And some point in time, we will go to that aspect, because almost everybody would love to know, when would I be liberated? That aspect we will discuss later. So here, in this sloka, he says, unmanifested reality, meaning you are looking something so obscure, so something obscure outside of you. And when you're looking something outside of you, that means even though it is outside of you, but still it is a boundary, because that boundary does not touch you. So outside of you, unmanifested reality, they are in darkness. But when they say they are further, deeper darkness, those who are worship the manifested one. And what do you mean by manifested? Everything manifested has nama, rupa, vivhara, named, formed, and characteristic. Otherwise, how could you say that it has been manifested? And whatever is the manifested, you describe it with some words, no matter which language it may be. And when you describe it with some word, that means what? It has some shape or color. And when it has some shape or color, means what? Boundary. So when it is bounded, how could it ever lead us to the open sky? Meaning, how could it let us experience the totally unbounded, limitless experience? So anytime that you feel that you have gotten it, you have met the God, so to say, you know that it is your mental disturbance, I will call it. It's your mental creation. And that means what? You created your God. And not the God, so to say, has created you. So if you could create your own God, now you know that manifested reality leads you to much deeper and darker knowledge, avidya. So now it gives you little idea as to what is avidya manifested. It is you who gave birth to. So important to understand. All that manifested and you giving shape of, you giving them name and color, you giving them some characteristic, it is okay. Now, don't think I'm contradicting with myself. It is okay so far as dharana is concerned. So far as you're bringing your mental frame to a frame of focus. But that is not God. Whichever form or symbol you take, but understand we have to go beyond that. That thing is just to gather your monkey mind going everywhere. And most of us, we say, oh, I have a picture of God in front of you. And your God may be Krishna, and the Christian person sitting next to he says, no, 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 this cannot be God. My God is Christ. And some Buddhist guy will say, no, 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 my God is Buddha. As soon as the word mine comes, limitation, mine but not yours. And what I mean by limitation, it is mine but not yours, and whatever that is yours is also not mine. How could it be omnipresent? Eternal reality. Understand this, contemplate, and try your best some point in time to go beyond this worldly knowledge and what our so-called religious institute have bombarded on us. So manifested and unmanifested. I will stop here, and it's little heavy duty, dear friends. Sit quietly, go for dharana, and as soon as you reach to the state of silence, do not engage your mind to somewhere else. Just be there. And that's why we have been guided that as soon as the silent moment comes, do not run away from it thinking, I'm done with my meditation. Let me go and do something else. I have a grocery to get to. I have to make 2-3 phone calls, and I have to go to work and blah, blah, blah. I have to. So you get back into the rat race. But once having silence, just be there. And at that time, also we have heard in Yoga Nidra classes the word nothing to do, nothing to become. I am what I am. I am a divine being. Nothing to do, meaning do not schedule any work thereafter. And as long as your mind can remain silent without activity, that is nothing to do. Nothing to become, meaning at that time, don't think that you are an engineer, you should have been, or better to be a doctor. Most of us, we are so frustrated with our profession. But mind you, your profession is a profession to sustain this body and to sustain this awareness of avidya and going beyond and making use of that to also allow us for the vidya and putting these two together, vidya and avidya, vayam. We appreciate the both and not disregarding any. That is the viveka, the discernment, power of discrimination our rishis is granting us. So with this, dear friend, let us contemplate on it as to what is darkness and what is deeper darkness, what is vidya and what is avidya, and why the great master, I can't even say great master. There are so many masters that have led us to experience this sloka. So we'll be studying next time, sloka number 13. And if you have questions, do contemplate and let your silence answer the question. And still, if you feel little confusion, you can always contact and discuss. We will discuss together and we may come up with convincingly clarification both two together. So, Hari Om. Observe a minute of silence and we have Shanti Path. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.